I'm here with Steve Fenech, my old Botany Rams teammate. How are you, mate?
Mate, going well, yeah. It's been a while, mate, since we were in the green and gold. Although we played the Masters a few years ago. That was a really good time to get back all the boys back together again.
Yeah, great times as kids. I was the front row, you were the hooker when scrums were a contest.
That's right, yeah. Well, I remember the loose head was really important back then. And remember they used to take a scrum count? They used to say, oh yeah, we won the scrums 12-7 or whatever it was. So no, they were the days where you actually had to battle. The scrum was a battle.
Yeah, and me and you would strike for the footy and win the.
That's right.
More often than not, we'd win it.
Yeah, it was good having someone like you to hang off though, mate, as a hooker. It was good. Big front row like yourself.
Yes. Well, enough about me. We'll go back, mate. Where are you from and what was it like growing up there?
Mate, I grew up in Botany. I'm a Botany boy. Played for the Rams, as you said, and I was the only. I'm one of four boys, and I was the only Botany boy in my family. All my brothers played for Mascot, so I was a Rams man, and thankfully went on to play for Souths for a little bit. But yeah, grew up, born and bred around Botany. Lived in Maroubra for a time as well, but no, I've always been in the area.
Yeah, and obviously you're famous for being Mario's brother, the Falcon.
Yeah, I don't get asked that very often. You know, they look at my head and think, "Are you related to him?" I'm thinking, "Yeah, what do you reckon?" Have a look at my head. Of course, I'm related to him. But
Yeah.
no, I'm proud of my brother, mate. I grew up, idolising my brother, and being able to actually play at Souths while he was there was the massive thrill for me. Like that was something I really treasure that time at Souths.
He's a club legend, mate, one of the greats. And before we get to that, you became a journalist. How did you make that happen?
Well, I always wanted to be a journo. Even when I was in high school, I thought, I reckon that, I'm interested in writing, interested in current events, and I thought, what better way to combine those than as a journalist? And so grew up, as soon as I left school, I had got a cadetship with News Limited. So was originally on the Daily Mirror, remember the old afternoon paper, and did a 3-year cadetship. And all I wanted to do though was to be a sports writer. So spent time writing news, courts, the whole bit as part of my cadetship. But eventually became a sports writer and eventually became the sports editor of the Daily Telly back in 2000. So worked my way up there, became sports editor, and following like about 3 or 4 years as sports editor, I then decided I was always interested in technology, and that's when I made the shift to tech.
Before we get to that, you told me a story about how you were caught up in the Murdoch battle when Souths were kicked out of the comp, and you've got a story about the march.
Yeah, well, I was the deputy sports editor when the march was on, and the march was on a Sunday. And what had happened, the Sunday was the sports editor's day off, so I was the sports editor on that particular day. And I remember walking into the editor's office, at the time it was Cole Allen, and asking him, look, what are we going to do with the march? Do you want to take a bit up front? Am I going to take a little bit up the back? How are we going to divide it up? And I never forget what he told me. He said, forget the march, bury it. He wanted me to just, for us not even to acknowledge that the march was on. And I put it in the back half of the sports section. But what News Limited did, because the march was going to come so close to News Limited. News Limited is in Holt Street in Surrey Hills. The march went down Chalmers Street. News Limited was terrified that the South's march was going to come towards the office. And they actually boarded up the entire ground floor of News Limited was boarded up because they were afraid that the fans were going to break the windows and just terrorise the place. Not one fan even came near the joint, but it was the notorious. I was ashamed to be a journalist that day because it was everywhere else except in our paper.
Yeah, and that was the first march, and I think the second march, there was no keeping that off the front page.
Well, what eventually happened, right? I think Souths got kicked out of the comp, and I remember the day they got kicked out, I was still the deputy sports editor. And the phone would be ringing. I'd put the phone down and it'd ring the second. And these are just people abusing us, saying, you guys are joking. My Foxtel box is on the footpath. I'm never buying your paper again. And I actually wore a black armband in the office that day just to express my disappointment with the decision. So that was a notorious day as well. And what I couldn't tell all those callers was I agreed with them. I was as disappointed as they were. So it was a really difficult time to be a former Souths man working at News Limited.
Yep. You became Rabbitoh 767 in 1988 at the SFS. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was my first grade debut. My first season at Souths was in 1988. And what had happened, I'd been playing a little bit of reserve grade. Paul Judd was playing first grade. For the previous week, they played Parramatta. And Paul Judd, who was filling in for my brother, I think Mario had an elbow infection. Juddy, though, elbowed old Sterlo and got 6 weeks suspension. So South was suddenly without a specialist hooker. And I remember George telling me, like on the Friday, there was a Saturday game against Wests. And on the Friday, he said, look, I want you to train with the first grade team and I'll let you know in the morning if we're going to start you. And so I trained with the team and just had a sleepless night thinking, geez, am I going to be in the side? Wake up the next morning to the papers, Rabbitohs gamble on rookie. There's my photo on the back page. Ray Cheston, who wrote the story, who I worked with, made up all my quotes. Never spoke to him, made up all my quotes of the story. But yeah, I made my debut against the Maggies back in May 28, 1988. Yeah, memorable day.
Yeah, and I was in the centres that day.
And you were too, yes, you were.
And we got the chocolates.
You did so, yes.
Very good. Okay, so we'll fast forward to Tech Guide. And you're a podcaster as well. Yep. And like you said, you always had a knack for gadgets.
I did, mate. I was always sort of an early adopter. Like I was the first bloke who bought a DVD player, a phone. It was all even when I was a sports writer. So I had a fascination with technology. And I had the opportunity to sort of go into tech because I saw that there wasn't really a forum for people to learn about this new tech that was coming around. I'm talking early 2000s, 2003. So people were buying flat screen TVs, digital cameras, GPSs. These were suddenly becoming consumer products. And I pitched the idea of having a lift out in the telly about technology, consumer technology. So my pitch was tech for people who don't know a thing about it so they can understand it. And that lift out went crazy. I left news at the end of 2010 to start Tech Guide, my website, thinking, well, you know what, there's an opportunity to do this, replicate what I started in the paper online, and that's what I did, and got into podcasting as well. I started podcasting with my mate Trevor Long. We do our Two Blokes Talking Tech podcast, and then I a year later started my own Tech Guide podcast. We've both been going now more than 10 years and more than 500 episodes for each show.
And I love my tech too, but I'm not in your league, but I love asking you about different products, and everybody loves the new products that are on the market. And so let me ask you, as a question, you get this all the time, maybe the best TV, best phone, and best laptop at the moment.
Well, I'm an Apple user. I'm a big Mac user. I've been a Mac user for 30 years. I've been using a Mac. So I'm a Mac laptop user. I've got an iMac as well that I use. And so I mostly use an iPhone. I do review a different phone a week. So I'm switching between a lot of phones, but my go-to phone at the moment would be mainly the iPhone. I do use the Samsung, the S22 Ultra right now, a really good phone, that one. But I'm mainly an iPhone user. In terms of TVs, I quite like the LG OLED TVs. I'm a big fan of those. Also Hisense. Hisense have been doing a lot of, they're actually a sponsor of the NRL now. They sponsor, I think, Thursday Night Footy. They're a really emerging brand as well, offer a lot of larger screen sizes. There's a lot of bang for your buck with Hisense.
Well, Hisense Arena, and you wouldn't believe it. Yeah. I didn't tell you this, but my missus went out to buy a 85-inch TV, and she tossed up the Samsung and the LG and come home with a Hisense. And I went,
great brand, yeah.
But really haven't watched it. It's a great telly.
Brilliant. No, well, that's the thing with TVs now. It's go big or go home. People are now, like you bought an 85-inch TV. The stepping on point now for TVs in 2022 is a 75-inch. So you've seen over the years that remember it was 55 was sort of the go-to size, then it became 65. Now 75 is the starting point, and like you did, 85 is also becoming more popular.
And now on Foxtel and a lot of TV, they're asking you, do you want to watch it in Ultra HD? Of course I do.
Yeah, of course.
And it's beautiful.
That's big. See, you can't not buy a 4K TV nowadays, right? So 4K, anyone who's got Netflix, Stan, all these streaming services support 4K, but Fox also supports 4K UHD as well for the sports coverage. And I was lucky enough to go to Magic Round a few weeks ago, and they gave me a look behind the scenes of the technology that's required to give you this 4K broadcast. It's fascinating, the flying fox and the rover on the ground and the camera they walk onto on the ground after someone scored a try. Remarkable how they do it. But again, that pristine 4K just really showcases the quality that your TV can achieve nowadays.
What's the next big thing in tech?
Mate, I think we're already seeing it. I reckon the whole idea of having a smart home, smart products are really taking off. I think the market's going to be worth billions of dollars just in Australia. And we're talking smart lights, smart security cameras, smart switches, being able to sort of do things like boost up your security, save energy, just that added convenience. They're the sort of products that are really affordable now. And because during COVID, a lot of people who were working from home realised that they needed better Wi-Fi. So now that we've got these grouse Wi-Fi networks at home, we're able to now stream stuff really well, but also too to connect all these smart devices so we can control things remotely, look in on our homes and our businesses as well through the cameras, use the switches to turn products on and off when we need to. So the smart home is, I think, going to become every home pretty soon.
And not a lot of people would know this, or your regular followers would. You're a drone pilot as well, and we're about to become drone pilots ourselves at Rabbitohs Fan TV.
Yeah, well, I got my drone license 6 years ago now. I've had it. And that allows me to fly commercially. So if someone, I actually recently did a job for an old schoolmate of mine who needed some aerial shots of their factory where they worked. So I'm able to fly drones up to 25 kilos and heavier than 7 kilos. And it's always line of sight. That's the whole idea of having the drone. The license is, it's a line of sight license. So you have to have it know not only where it is in the sky, but also its orientation. So yeah, that's been really cool. And drones now are becoming not just a flying camera. There's so much more. Like a guy in my class was actually a farmer who wanted to get his drone license so he could check the boundary lines of his property or check his crops and just keep an eye on his cattle and all those sorts of things. So we're seeing so many uses for drones now, photography just being one of many.
Well, Chaps said to us, I'm not sure we'd be able to use it. And I don't think he realises the potential it has to fly over training and fly over junior league games. Yeah. And just for us doing a show outdoors, we can hover around and give us extra footage. So
well, it puts a camera where you don't normally have one. And being able to, some of the shots you can achieve with a drone nowadays, even a really light, affordable drone is remarkable. And even the quality, 4K, 60 frames per second, it's just incredible quality you're getting. You just got to be careful though where you're flying it. So you really need to follow the rules. You can't be close to people and buildings, and you've got to be a certain distance away from the airport and things like that. So that was what the bulk of the license course was learning about all that safety info that you need to take into account before you take off with the drone.
Well, one thing I like about your show and your business Tech Guide is that you do a lot of video instructions on all of these topics. So if anyone wants to find out about their TV or their drone, go to Tech Guide, Steve Fenech.
That's it. Yeah, video is another really good piece of content to share. A lot of people easier to watch a video than read a story. I do both. I'll write a review and also film a review as well. But no, I think it's showing rather than just telling and writing the review. Really, a lot of people are interested in that. I'm happy to do a lot of cool stuff I can review as well.
Speaking of cool stuff, you're also an astronomer.
Yeah,
is that how I could describe you?
Yeah, or I'm an astrophotographer. Well, it's astronomy, but I got in. That was sort of a COVID hobby that I got into because a good mate of mine from school was into it, and I remember messaging me on Facebook saying, "Man, how the hell do you take those photos?" And he explained, "I got a telescope and did all this," and I then soon disappeared down that rabbit hole, and I own a couple of telescopes and a couple of mounts and cameras, and it's fascinating little hobby. And the results are remarkable. If you get everything right, I describe it to people, astrophotography is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube every night because everything's got to go right for you to get the shot. And we're talking exposures of like 10-minute exposures. So the mount's got to be tracked properly and polar aligned, and there's so much that goes into it. But the result, if you do it right, is pretty good.
Some of the results that you've produced, Steve shares these on his Facebook page and that, they're just magnificent. Yeah. And the mystery of the universe is so alluring to me. And some of those things they're billions of light years away, and they're billions of light years across, and they're so the color is just glorious.
You just really appreciate just how big the universe is. Like I shot a target the other night, the Southern Spiral Galaxy, and it's like 20 million light years away. And I captured the light through my telescope. That light left the galaxy, that particular part of the universe, 20 million years ago. That's how long it took to hit my camera that night. So just it really gives you an appreciation the sheer vastness of the universe, and that we are just a speck in this massive universe we live in.
And while we're on that, it is so big that you cannot discount that there is life somewhere on that other side
I
somewhere.
have no doubt. Like, I shoot galaxies, and every little star you see in any of my photos, that's a sun. So it's a star similar to our own sun. So in that particular system could be a planet that supports life, supports, oxygen, is just the right ingredients, just like we have here on Earth. Just the sheer distance that between us and these probably thousands of other planets that are just like Earth, we'll never, ever, ever see these other people. There are planets just like Earth's all around the place. And I'm talking in galaxies. There are thousands of galaxies with billions of suns and stars. If there isn't another planet just like ours, I'd be very surprised.
Me too. I mean, it's just, we couldn't be so pretentious to think that we were the only ones. It's happened here. There's every chance it's happened elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And just the distance between us, like we're talking 20 million light years, not years, 20 million light years, traveling at the speed of light for 20 million years. That's a long way.
Yeah, well, let's hope that either us or one of them one day works out how to get across that distance.
Yeah. And hope they come in peace as well. So
I think we come in peace. Right, back to the footy. You write a Rabbitohs game recap after every game on your Facebook page.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Well, I'm an old sports journo, don't forget. So I was doing that anyway. But I find it is, a lot of people now expect it. They want to hear it, they want to read it, and they share it. And I get text messages, people saying, well, when are you going to put up your report? And I find it quite therapeutic as well, especially after we lose. We're sort of having this discussion about the game. But, credit where it's due. There's nothing I say in there that isn't it's all my opinion. And a lot of people usually agree with me. There's nothing I say in there that's not true. It's what I observed during the game, and I give out the bouquets just as much as the brickbats if necessary. But it's my honest account of how I saw the game.
What are your thoughts on the 2022 Rabbitohs? And I know you don't hold back, so you don't have to hold back here on Rabbitohs Fan TV.
Well, I think we've had a tough start to the year, but considering our recent run hasn't been that good. But considering all of that, we're still in the 8. So we're still managing to win those games and stay in the top 8, even though we're not playing at our best. I sort of see that as a positive. I think that once we get our act together, once young Ilias gets a bit more experience, Cody sort of gets back into form, our Origin players come through unscathed, I think the second half of the year could be, I reckon, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be quite exciting that, I think we're a solid chance of making that. We've got a tough draw, but at our best, we can beat anybody.
Correct. And Origin was good last night, wasn't it?
Oh, brilliant. What a great game. And seeing Cam Murray start the game, that's what he should have done in game 1. Mm-hmm. Can't believe he never started game 1. Cookie not starting game 2, I thought, he was on for, I think Appy was only on for the first 20, 25 minutes or 30 minutes, and Cookie brought it home. So I'm not sure what they're going to do there for game 3. Probably sort of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of approach. He might start Appy for game 3. But no, I thought the spine of the team stood up. Cleary had a great game. Game 1, he was obviously targeted. He wasn't allowed any room to breathe. But really good that he had a brilliant game, and that really led to that victory.
Well, you're a family man, Steve. I went to school with your wife, Jo, and our daughters are about the same age.
Yeah.
So what else do you like doing besides tech and footy to get away?
Yeah, well, Jo and I, we were actually it's our 30th wedding anniversary later this year, so we were planning on going
Congrats.
Going over to overseas. Thank you, yeah. But my kids, my daughter Jacqueline's 27, my son Aaron's 25, and my youngest Haley's about to turn 22. So 3 kids in their 20s. We're, they're got their own careers and their own lives. A couple still live at home here still though, but that's fine. But no, life's good, mate. We're just enjoying ourselves. I'm working hard, but also I like to sort of take a bit of time to enjoy, some travel and spending time with my family. My parents are both in great health as well, and they're I see them quite often as well. So no, really, really good family times at the moment.
Well, we didn't cover this, but you do like your cars as well. And you've taken me for a spin in your Tesla. Just quickly before we go, tell us about that.
Tesla. I've had my Tesla for 4 years now, and mate, I love that car.
You told me the story. You used to have a Merc.
Yes.
And you're a Merc petrol guy.
I was a Merc man.
So you've made this transition, and it's a really topical thing now because I think they're making all new units to have power now.
Well, 4 years ago, I drive a Tesla, but EVs at the time were, they weren't very common. Now, obviously, there are way more EVs on the road. A lot of more people are considering EVs as their next vehicle. They're becoming a lot more affordable too. The Teslas aren't the cheapest cars, but they are they're the leader in terms of bringing EVs to everyone's attention and creating the supercharger network and the infrastructure required to have an EV. But at our place here, I've got solar panels and a battery, so I charge my car through the panels. And mate, I have not spent $1 on my car, not $1 into running my car in the 4 years I've had it, because through the solar panels and the community charges and everything. I think that moving forward, we need to really look at improving that infrastructure so that everyone will be able to charge their car, including people who live in apartments, people who have off-street parking. So these are the things we need to consider to give everyone access to a charger, because that's kind of the thing holding people back. They've got a bit of what I call range anxiety. They're thinking, well, how far can this car go? That's the question I get asked. How far can you go on a full charge? So it's definitely the future. Just how soon we're going to sort of cut over, it just depends on so many other factors.
Albo would love you because you've got renewables and you put back into the grid.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it. I've had panels on my house now for 5 years, and mate, they've paid themselves back over that, in that time, because my electricity bills used to be like $1,000, $1,200 a quarter. Now I made an investment in our system, and it's paid itself off in this 5 years, and it's going to continue to pay me, because the way that energy prices are going right now, and even like I'm so glad I drive an EV. I've seen the price of petrol recently, and I'm glad I'm out of that as well.
There you go.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. I reckon solar panels are the way to go. It gives you a bit more certainty in these uncertain times. You don't know what energy price is going to do, and if you're considering an EV as well, just gives you that added security that you can charge at home confidently. And
cost you nothing.
Yeah, that's right. You could be able to top up your battery and have a full battery when you leave your driveway.
Well, I'm big on renewables and the Anthony Albanese government as well. So, Stephen Fenech, thanks for joining us on Rabbitohs Fan TV, and we'll put a link to Tech Guide in the notes of this video.
Good on you, mate. Been a pleasure to talk to you, buddy.